Hello there, and welcome to the Divorce View Talk Show. Hello, it's Joanie Winberg, divorce mentor and facilitator of How to Emotionally and Financially Survive Divorce 4-week program. It's always a pleasure to do this show together with my co-host, Rosalind Sedacca. Hello, Roz.
Hi, Joanie. Good to see you again. I'm Rosalind Sedacca. I'm founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, a divorce and parenting coach, and author of How Do I Tell the Kids About the Divorce. And I'm very excited to have a guest with a wealth of information this week. Her name is Diana Shepherd. She's the editorial director of Divorce Magazine. Hi, Diana. Welcome.
Hi, Rosalind and Joanie. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome. We're thrilled you're here. And we have a great topic today that I'm excited to start talking about. First, I'm going to just give the topic and then have the listeners learn a little bit more about you, Diana. And as far as today's show is all about the big love and the fairy stepmother, love your spouse, his or her children, or his or her ex. So it's going to be a great show. Diana, before we get started on that, tell us a little bit about yourself, and I know you specialize a lot in step families and children, and why that became your passion.
Well, it grew out of a divorce, and that's actually the genesis of Divorce Magazine. There were actually 2 divorces that were our reason for starting it. The first was my business partner, Dan Couvrette. He was getting a divorce from his first wife, and my then fiance, Greg, was also getting a divorce from his first wife when we met. And he had 3 kids at the time we met who were 5, 6, and 7 years old. Now, most women, if you grow up dreaming about either your wedding day or what your future is going to look like, normally you don't go to bed wishing and wishing and wishing that you could be a stepmother one day. You know, there just weren't a lot of role models for it, and if you ask someone to say the word stepmother and what's the word that comes before that, the word evil is always what's going to pop up for people. So, you know, that was the conversation in our society 20 years ago when we started the magazine. So I went looking for some help. I'd been in publishing, as had Dan, all my life, and so the first place I looked was the newsstands, thinking there's got to be some books, some magazines, something that will tell me like what to do with the rest of our lives. Funnily enough, I was the managing editor of Wedding Bells magazine at the time.
Kidding.
I thought, there are hundreds of magazines that tell you how to do one day of your life, but nothing that tells you how to do the rest of your life and how to interact with somebody else's children and how to interact with somebody else's ex, you know, potentially for the rest of your life. So really, we started the magazine as a self-help project so that we could learn what we needed to know, and essentially we started a magazine that we needed to read. So that's where the story ideas came from too. For the first several issues were all of the really pressing concerns and questions that we had. And because I was getting into a relationship with a divorced man with very young kids, I needed to know a lot about stepmothering right away. And again, there's a lot more that has happened in the last 10 to 15 years, but I could find exactly one book at the time that was called Remarriage, and basically it said, don't do it because your marriage will break up if there's kids.
Ouch.
Much higher divorce rate for remarriages that involve children than a first marriage. So basically it was doom and gloom, don't do it, can't be done, you're toast. So the interest really was very personal, and the need to get this information was very personal. And there was a lot of learning curve along the way. You know, I definitely made mistakes and hopefully learned from them and hopefully helped our readers learn from them as well.
Well, being a parent, whether you're divorced or not, is hard enough. But then when it's, like you said, you're a stepmom, and might be that evil thought for a stepmom or a stepdad, and so it's a difficult situation right from the get-go. So I can see where you were stumped and trying to find information that there wasn't really anything out there. So it's absolutely. So as far as you've mentioned here, there's a secret sauce to making a blended family work. What's that all about, Diana?
The secret sauce is really love, and you have to start with that. You can't start with, let me make sure that the kids are worthy of my love, or they have to earn it, or any of that. And there may be, for some people, a little bit of fake it till you make it, but luckily, psychology has proved that there is truth to that. You act as though until you can be that way, and being that way makes you that way. So it definitely does become the truth. Because especially if you haven't thought it through completely, and I have to say, probably a lot of people don't when you're being swept away by love and you have this romantic image in your head of how, you know, the kids are just going to love you immediately and everything is going to be just this happily ever after immediately. You know, it's not going to be that way. And there's going to be definitely challenges and times that you're going to feel hurt and times that you're going to feel unloved that might tempt you to start acting that way. So I'm here to tell you, just don't do it. You have to be the grown-up here. You have to be the grown-up all the time, and you need to love these kids. They're going to know if you don't. Their father or mother, if that's the case, is also going to know if you don't, and it will put so much strain on your marriage.
Could you give us an example, maybe, of what you went through that you thought maybe I'm not I'm not doing the act of love or act of kindness, or how you use, because it sounds like to me you became very conscious of this whole thing.
Yes, but like I said, there were mistakes made early on, and the first mistake is that we didn't talk about this before we got married. We really never had a serious discussion about how is authority going to work, how is discipline going to work, how are our styles dissimilar, you know, will you back me up no matter what? Do you want me to have nothing to do with this, everything to do with it? So one of the learning bits that, you know, that comes from a mistake that we made early on is that I would really encourage people to have this open and honest conversation. Like, you need to have lots of open and honest conversations before you get married anyway, but if there's going to be children involved, you need to ramp that up and you need to involve them in that.
Yes.
And depending on what age there are, people might say, oh, well, for young kids it's really different. It's either really easier than it is with teenagers, or teenagers are easier. I'm here to tell you there's challenges at every single age. And you're going to hear those words at some point or the other coming out of your stepchild's mouth, which are, you're not my mother, you can't tell me what to do. You know, you can do my laundry and drive me to the mall and pay for summer camp, but, you know, you can't tell me what to do. So you need to practice up for that. You need to practice, and I'm not kidding, practice in front of a mirror until you have it down cold what your answer is going to be. That's going to be your form of what other people might call in business the elevator speech, so that it rolls off your tongue, you know, you don't stumble with what it is. And for me, again, coming back to love, it has to involve the word love. You know, I did not give birth to you, but I love you, and therefore I have both the right and the responsibility to help you here. And it is helping you here. I'm going to teach you right from wrong. I'm going to show you what the difference between, you know, responsibility and indifference looks like. I'm going to do those things for you.
I love it. I imagine there's a lot of issues with testing and competing for the dad or mom's attention when you're in a environment. Kids versus the partner, and who's going to win out, and you don't want to get into that competition, but I imagine it's something that happens very easily. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely, and that's another place where you need to plan in advance, because otherwise those scales are going to get tipped, they're going to get out of balance, and somebody is going to feel very hurt. And it's probably going to happen even with the best of intentions. From time to time, either the kids are going to feel like, you know, really dad should have chosen me over her, or the stepmother's going to feel that. But truthfully, if you think about this in advance and make some plans so that everybody feels like they're taken care of and they have some private time with dad, if it's in the case of a stepmother, that's going to go a long way to alleviating that. So, for instance, you make a plan that you're going to have a date night, and it's what's going to work with your schedules and all the rest of it, whether it's once a week or once a month. But you have to have a formula, set aside time that you are going to spend one-on-one adult time. And actually, I think this is for marriages as well. Doesn't matter.
I was going to say that's important. Yes.
And so many marriages that I see, they are so caught up in their kids' lives that they totally forgot that they loved this person and that wanted to spend the rest of their life with them. They're almost ignoring them now. So I think that that is crucial, and that's going to go a long way, you know, to have the stepmother not feel hurt. And then there should be one-on-one time with the kids. So, you know, whatever it is, again, that's going to work for them. So every Saturday morning, Dad takes the kids bowling, stepmom doesn't come along. Eventually, you know, over the years, because you also don't want to force this instant family, and you certainly don't want to force your stepkids to feel like they have to lie to you by telling you that they love you immediately when probably they don't. You know, maybe when the stepkid invites you along to go bowling on one of those, you know, then you can go too. But otherwise, you know, let them have private time with their dad, and on the other flip side of the coin, you need private time with their dad too.
And I would say the big thing here is to really check in with your own ego, because I can see where that could kick in big time, where a person's feeling left out or playing the victim or as woe is me, or, you know, putting the kids in an awkward position. I think that has a lot to do with it as well. And Roz and I talk all the time about taking the high road. And I know you mentioned in your notes, you know, kill your spouse's ex with kindness as well as the kids, maybe on that idea of fake it till you make it. But kindness is genuine anyway, so why not just be kind and be that role model? But I can see where it can be a really sticky situation at times.
And there certainly is fake it with somebody's ex, because let's face it, if you didn't have the kids in common and your husband was spending this much time talking with their ex, you'd be suspicious that something was going on, right? So the fact is, she is going to be in your life. And especially if she's got a difficult relationship with your husband, sometimes you as the stepmother can be the person who is that bridge builder, because they already know how to trigger each other really well. Like, I would watch that and watch telephone conversations between you know, my husband and his ex-wife, and I just saw them escalate, you know, like that. So sometimes, because you're not plugged in the same way, if you allow yourself not to be plugged in the same way, you can be a kind of a mediator. You know, yes, you're always going to be on your husband's side if it has to come to that, but maybe there's something that you can do. Maybe you do some of the difficult phone calls because you're not going to trigger her in the same way. So that was something yeah, is that I had some of the conversations that we knew were going to spiral otherwise, and because I went out of my way to be generous and to say, you know, what can we do? Do you want us to pick up the kids early so that you can go to the whatever? You know, at first there was a little bit of suspicion, I think, on her part, but after you keep making these offers and you keep meaning it, there is a softening that happens, and then eventually you can ask for it to come the other way. So yes, this is our weekend with the kids, but actually, you know, we also have this other thing on, would it be possible to trade? And the person who you've been generous with is probably going to say yes.
And then also, when she gets, or if he or she gets into another relationship themselves, that might take away some of the pressure.
Yes, I mean, it's obviously easier if I actually used to refer to her as our ex-wife, because truthfully that was sort of the position that she played in that way. And if your ex-wife is happy, that's going to spill over. I mean, there's that old phrase, you know, mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That's particularly true in a divorce case.
Wonderful. So you became a bridge builder, and that's helpful no matter what, because every conflict area needs a bridge builder. So that's a role that really makes sense to bringing both sides more together for the sake of the kids, which is what it's all about.
Yes, and sometimes bringing them together means keeping them apart for on certain occasions until enough water under the bridge that they can have a conversation without dragging in everything that went wrong in their failed marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So if you had to break it down, some real basic steps, a person's just got married, they have stepchildren, what would you advise just to start the conversation or the building the relationship with the kids and the ex?
Well, again, hopefully you've had some conversations, some really detailed conversations with your fiance before you actually got married. I think that's a mistake some people make, thinking that because they love each other, and you do, that somehow it will sort itself out. I'm here to tell you it ain't going to sort itself out.
Right.
It's not. I joke about the fairy stepmother, but honestly, it's work and it's commitment to the family over and over again. And you have to make that commitment sometimes like 4 times in a day to yourself, like recommit.
You know, I've been in the situation where my kids have a stepmom, and I've been blessed because I knew her beforehand, and we were actually, our daughters were on the same softball team, so we were sitting in the bleachers together, and so there was some, people were getting along to begin with, but she really had a lot of respect for me, and this is a great thing for also a stepmom to think about as well. When my daughter got married, I had this beautiful long gown, and she said, you know what, this is your day, not mine. I'm not going to go in there with a long gown on. I'm going to go in with a short dress and be just like another woman attending the wedding. And I was grateful for that because it was my day with my daughter, and so for her to do that and to be conscious of that, I was so grateful for that. So that's a good example of how you can really ease the pain by doing those acts of kindness.
Respect, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Even if you can't love them yet, respect is the minimum that you owe, and I really do believe that's the truth.
Mm-hmm. And my kids really kind of got into this thing where they thought it was a good thing. I mean, there wasn't any conflict, and we would actually have 2 Christmases on Christmas Day. They'd have it here at home, so it was traditional for them, but then they'd go to her house, and they said, wow, we got 2 Christmases here. We got double the presents, because they were little at that time, so it was kind of a cool thing. But I really had to go back and look at this and say, you know what, I can't put my ego into this, because when they would come and pick the kids up and drive away, and I'm thinking, wow, they're with the family that I had been with for 20 years, and now I'm not with that family and celebrating this day. So I really had to tune into me and make sure that I wasn't going to play the victim or be resentful and fire back at different things at different times. So there's a lot going on there.
Well, and one of the other things that can help early on, you were asking about how you can help the kids adjust, is to start immediately with the notion that they're going to be loved at both houses, but there is a mom's house and a dad's house, and there might be different rules, and nobody's wrong. It's not that the rules at the other house are bad and wrong or anything like that. It's just that they're different. But they are different, and if you're in this house, then these are the rules that you live by. Our ex-wife and I are just like very different people. She's very free-spirited and believes that kids should be able to do whatever they want, whenever they want, and there's some lovely stuff around that. I grew up with I guess much more discipline, I suppose, and there might have even been not a seen and not heard. There certainly wasn't that, because our parents always encouraged us to talk intelligently, but we certainly weren't allowed to fool around at the dinner table or eat with our hands or any of those things. So the kids came to realize, after first being sort of resentful about why they weren't allowed to eat with their hands at a dinner table, so I sat down and taught them to use a knife and fork. And wouldn't you know, it took a few years to come back, but it came back that one of them told me how grateful she was because she was at some party and knew all of the right knives and forks to use and all of the rest of it, and so everybody thought she was just something special. And so I had that little burnishing of the stepmother badge there going. You know, it looked like a lot of work I was putting into something maybe that some people might think was old-fashioned, but that turned out to have a good application in the end.
That's excellent.
And
Diana, why don't we take a minute for you to let our viewers know, our listeners know where they can find you and access the resources that you have available.
Okay, well, our magazine and website, which are turning 20 years old, believe it or not, on March 6th, is the divorcemag.com. And we have, when we first launched the magazine, I think we had a 12-page website, which was pretty exciting for 20 years ago. Now I think there's 17,000 pages at our last count of articles, blogs. We also have separated and divorced people who are writing blogs for each other, so offering support. So it's not just expert advice, but we definitely have expert advice there as well. And there still is a magazine that goes along with it. And then, if I can just say one exciting thing for our 20th anniversary of serving this community, we're launching the Divorce School, which Rosalind is going to be taking part in April and May, which is going to be free podcasts and videos that are aimed to help out people in the before, during, and after divorce.
Excellent, excellent. Well, congratulations, and I'm sure over the years you have served and helped many, many parents during and after divorce and step-parents as well. So congratulations, that's great.
Thank you, and I hope so, because honestly, it was started with that mission to change it from the divorce from hell and the evil stepmother to empowering people to be compassionate with each other and to be great co-parents to their children. And if I could have changed even one or two lives' trajectories, boy, what a fulfilling role that is.
And I think it's looking always at the big picture as far as, you know, what are we doing for the sake of the kids? You know, thinking about if they're young kids, you want them to grow up to have healthy, happy, healthy relationships, or if they even are teens or young adults, you still want them to be able to have healthy, happy relationships. And it's really what they see. You could probably see yourself, Diana, how this would be so different if you were not this conscious and so active about wanting to do the right thing. Amazing.
I was also lucky that I had some great role models as well. One of my best friends, we met at band camp when we were 11, like literally one of those. And she gave me a really good piece of advice that I think is great for parents or step-parents, which is in any really difficult situation with the kids, think about what do you want for them when they're grown up. And that's going to change in that moment how you are. Because sometimes it is much easier to say yes. You can just have ice cream for dinner, no need to have broccoli. You know, you can, whatever the thing is. Because discipline done right is actually harder than just sort of giving in. So if you check in and just see what is it you want your kids to be. You want them to be loving and lovable. You want them to be happy and joyful and self-expressed, but you don't want them trampling all over other people's feelings either. Okay, so that's what you want. How are we going to get there? Is it by doing this thing or by doing that thing? And it actually becomes pretty clear with some great advice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Diana, I really just appreciate you being on the show. It's been a pleasure. We have okay, now it's not echoing here, but it's been just a pleasure to have you on the show and giving us this great information. But what I really like about it is just the practical stories from yourself of what has happened, and that it goes a long way, and people can really say, you know what, she survived, she's doing well, I'm going to take her information and run with it. So your stories have been very, very helpful today.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
And also, Roz, any update on yourself that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I just want to remind everyone that at childcentereddivorce.com you could find a wealth of resources on the divorce and parenting equation. as well as some co-parenting programs and courses. So you can always look to us as a resource, and in addition for divorce and parenting coaching. And Joanie, what have you been up to recently?
Actually, we're all about fresh start after divorce community. That's what we're all about. And that's when you heard me before talk about the facilitator of how to emotionally and financially survive divorce. And that's what I consider the fresh start after divorce, focusing on conflict resolution as well as stress management. So these are some basic, really, tools that are necessary to all get along and survive and move on to the maybe next relationship or dealing with the stepmom or stepdad, for sure. So thanks again, Diana, for being on the show. Always a pleasure to Roz to do this together with you. And to our listeners, tune in. Go to divorceview.com. You can listen to this again. And then also we have now a podcast ourselves for the Divorce View. So if you don't have time to listen or time to watch, you can certainly listen. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see everybody next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.